I'm an interpretive ranger with Gates of the Arctic National Park and Preserve. We document any social trails, any brush that's been tampered down by tents, any human activity we notice, and then also doing soundscape monitoring within that. One of our backcountry rangers, Al Smith, and I had a discussion on the first day when we landed in Killik Lake, and we talked about what importance being a backcountry ranger has. And one, he said that he is a backcountry maid service, which basically means if we find garbage or fire rings, we dismantle them, we pick up the trash, and we fly it out at the end of our patrol.
I'm the artist in residence, and when I did my application, it was to coordinate a project with Jessica Ricken, who is the entomologist at Denali National Park and also a friend of mine. So when I saw that there was an artist in residency open at Gates, I contacted Jessica and we made a proposal together, focusing on the pollinators in the park, basically creating portraits of each species that we could.
This trip on the Killik is part of an ongoing study we have in Gates of the Arctic and some of the other Alaskan parks to find out more about pollinators that are here. So that includes bees and flower flies and butterflies.
It's a parasitic bee, and these bees go into the nests of other bumblebee species. And this is a female. She'll kill the queen, lay her own eggs in the nest, and then get the workers to raise her young. So one way you can tell parasitic bees is they don't have those corbicula, the little baskets to carry pollen, because they don't need to carry it to their own nest, because they essentially raid someone else's nest and get the other bees to work for them. This is one of our focal groups. This is a bee mimicking flower fly.
And do you mind explaining what you're doing to it?
I am putting some canned air, which I think is mostly CO2, into the tube, into the vial to knock out the fly, to just get it to relax for a few minutes and we can photograph.
Once we have good shots of fairly common species, then I'll put on something to make it even more macro. Okay.
So when people think about why pollinators are important, the first thing you think about is, oh, well, they provide a lot of the food. I mean, there's a statistic that every third bite of food you eat is brought to you by pollinators. So honeybees and other managed bees are huge in our agricultural systems, managed agricultural systems. But I don't think people think as much about how important pollinators are in wild ecosystems like we have here in Alaska. And, you know, you think of Alaskan national parks, you think of the large fur-bearing creatures, but without pollinators and the plants that they pollinate, those large creatures wouldn't be here either. One thing I think Cindy's work is going to do is help bring our, the things that we're interested in, these little insects, up to a scale where people can really appreciate how beautiful they are. Because they're not just important in an ecological sense, they're really like beautiful creatures. So I'd like the public to think more about ecosystems as a whole and appreciate the smaller things that aren't quite so obvious when you're surveying the landscape, but are really essential to having healthy, functioning wilderness that we all love to come out and enjoy.